Hey everybody, welcome to episode 17, where I talk about the 5 benefits of investing in residential multifamily properties and how to scale your portfolio faster. A lot of people think that when it comes to buying multifamily properties, it's very daunting, it's intimidating, and you have to have a boatload of cash in order to buy a 10, 12 unit building. Well, actually, you can instead buy a 2 to 4 unit residential property and it still be multifamily. So you don't have to have a lot of money, and there are ways around it to be able to still start off small and have good cash flow starting off. All right, so to start things off, I want to make sure I'm very clear. So residential multifamily properties are anything from 2 to 4 units. These homes, when you purchase them, you could purchase them pretty much the same way you would a single family home. They are still considered in the same category. Anything from 5 units up are considered commercial multifamily properties, and that is a whole different ball game. You're gonna have to put that 25% down, and you're looking at 80, 90, 100,000 plus money down just to get started in that. But good news is you don't have to start that big. You can get your feet wet by starting off with the 2 units to 4 units. So benefit number one that I really like is it's easy to house hack in. So first, let me explain what a house hack is. So house hack is a strategy that involves renting out portions of your primary residence to generate extra income or to offset the cost of the mortgage and other expenses associated with owning a home. So I recommend first time homeowners doing this, right? If you're not too sure, you want to own a home, you're tired of paying rent, but you're not too sure about what type of house that you want, go ahead and buy a duplex. In my market, I can get a duplex for the same price that I could probably get a single family home. It may not be in the same area, it may not be the same class and neighborhood, but it's definitely not too far off. So what you could do is you could buy a duplex, let's say for 150 grand. Your mortgage is $800, and you live on one side, and then you have to rent out the other. Let's say you got a 2 bedroom on one side that you live in, and a 2 bedroom on the other. Mortgage $800. Market says, hey, you could rent out your other unit for 900. So now your mortgage is covered. So now that your mortgage is covered, you got an extra $100. Use that for utility bill. Maybe outside of that, you're paying for your water out of pocket, and you're paying for internet. But for the majority of the part of that time, you are living there for free. It's a great way to, for one, you're saving a lot of money because you're not worried about the $9,600 you probably would have paid that whole year. My math may be a little bit off, but it's around that ballpark. We'll say around 10 grand that you would have spent anyways in utilities and mortgage. So that's more money that now you can save up to do whatever you want to do with. So living for free, I mean, who doesn't like that? So just something to think about when it comes to house hacking. Obviously, if I was you, make sure that when you have somebody that's in that other unit, easier to manage. I know this is a military town for us, so a lot of times we rent out to other military folk, but the vetting process, pay the extra money to pay for a background screening, an application process, so you can see what this person's background is like. Obviously, you don't want nobody with a felony in there, or obviously you don't want nobody with a judgment, which was an eviction. Now, I say this is for somebody that is your first time. I wouldn't want to don't deal with somebody like that because you're trying to get your feet wet. I've allowed somebody with a felony in one of my units. He wrote like a long paper explaining what it was, and we gave him a chance, and he ended up working out. But I would say starting off, I would make sure it's just somebody that's very easy. They just looking for a place. They would make 3 times more than what the rent is, and no judgments, nothing going on. I understand COVID is going on, so maybe right now you would want to maybe lower the rent just a tad to get somebody in there, but still your standards on what their background is should not change if you're just starting off and you're just trying to get your feet wet. So number two is lower foreclosure rate. So like I said, right, multifamilies are around the same price as single families in a lot of areas, including my area. Like I said, different, maybe a little far off from each other, but you can, fair price. So if you did your research and you got the right deal, when it comes to a 2 to 4 unit, it should take about half the units to cover the mortgage. So a lot of people go by the 1% rule or 2% rule. 1% rule is if my house costs 150 grand, then that means my rent income needs at least be 1,500 in total. So if I have a triplex, each apartment needs to be giving me $500 a month in rent in order for the deal to make sense. That's like the rule of thumb. That should not be your end all be all, because there are other expenses that may come into play. Maybe there is flooding insurance that changes your expenses month to month, which is different than homeowners insurance. That's another expense. Maybe the water bill is a little bit higher in that area than most places. So just keep that in mind, just as a rule of thumb. Don't let that be the end all be all, but the 1% rule. I like the 1.5% rule, or if I can, 2% rule. That kind of gives me a cushion for anything that may come about, and I still am getting some type of cash flow. So if you have a fourplex, and let's say we'll stick with the triplex. So we have a triplex, and let's say each unit rents out for $500. It gives you your $1,500, and your mortgage is $700. So I know if I at least have at least two of the units paying rent, then out of three, then at least my mortgage is covered, and then a little bit some is left over. So mortgage is 700. I'm at least making $1,000 out of the 1,500. Let's say the third unit is not paying their rent for whatever reason. It's COVID. All right, I have 1,000. My mortgage is 700. Okay, I got $300 left over. That allows me to pay for maybe my property manager or utility bill, or whatever the case may be. And that's the beauty of a multifamily. And that is the safeguard on how, if you own a multifamily, you're less likely to foreclose on that home, or get behind on your payments, because you are not reliant on everybody paying their rent. You're only reliable maybe on half or 2/3. So it kind of gives you a bit of a cushion so that you can survive through whatever may be going on. And it allows you to not be in panic mode. So that third unit that either is not paying rent or maybe vacant, now I'm not stressing. I can take my time and not look for the first applicant that comes my way in order to, to get somebody in there and pay my mortgage. I can vet very thoroughly. I can make sure that that person has everything that they need in order to be a good tenant moving forward, and not have to worry about my mortgage being paid for, because I already have two other tenants in there. So definitely, I like that better than a single family home. Now, I mean, there's obviously a lot of perks to single family homes, but I know if I have a single family home and I'm renting it out, unless I'm renting out each room and that makes sense, I'm usually looking for a family to move in there. And so if one family is not in there, or one person's not in there paying the whole thing, then I don't have any income coming in. So it's kind of a, all or nothing. I live and die by that. And so, like I said, there's obviously some benefits to single family homes, but that's why I like multifamily, because it gives me more of a cushion. And I'm big on insulating my business, and always giving myself room for any type of discrepancies or issues that may come in the future, because I think a lot of things are unpredictable. So number three is easier to manage. So wouldn't you rather like to go to one location to handle 5 repairs, and go to 5 different properties to handle 5 different repairs? So that's the question you kind of got to ask yourself. What's your bandwidth? And for me, I like to go to one location and handle 3 different issues, then go to 3 different spots in order to handle 3 different issues. It's more time consuming, right? Especially if you don't have properties all on the same street. If you have uh, one property in one city, one property in the other, and the one in another, and they're all 15 miles apart, that's more time out of the day. So go back to the triplex, right? My triplex is making $500 a month per unit, and the roof needs to get fixed. Well, I only got to go to one roof that's going to cover for those 3 guys. Or if there's a plumbing issue, I only got to go to that house to fix the plumbing issue for everybody. And so that's just something that I like, and it's a perk. And sometimes what some landlords do, they allow some issues to kind of pile up, not detrimental, like, hey, the ceiling is leaking, but let's just say, hey, this porch maybe needs to get painted. Let's say this awning probably needs to come down, and let's say the grass needs to get cut. So they wait for all 3 things to probably pile up, small things, obviously, and then they go ahead and take care of all at once. And now you have serviced all 3 tenants all at once. And so let's just say you have 3 triplexes in 3 different areas, at least you're taking care of 9 different tenants all at the same time. At well, three of them at the same time in 3 different locations versus 9 different tenants in 9 different locations. So again, nothing against single family homes. I look to get into them at some point if I find a good flip. But when it comes to multifamily, that's definitely another perk when it comes to time management. And I like the fact that as well, for a lot of us, we work 9 to 5. A lot of us have jobs. So I don't have the time to drive all the way across town in 8 different locations to take care of 8 different issues. I like to be able to go to one spot, be able to take care of a bunch of discrepancies, and then I go on back to my family, as I'm sure a lot of you also would as well, because we look for this to be streamlined. We look for this to be passive, not a whole nother job. And so that's something to look into. All right, so number 4, so build your real estate portfolio faster. So remember when I was talking about in a lot of markets you can find duplexes or triplexes, and around the same price as really nice single family homes, and they have similar loan requirements. So here's a quick life hack that I think will help a lot of people. A lot of people, they, like I said, they believe that they can't get wealthy in real estate without having a boatload of money. But there are, I'm not gonna say loopholes, but there are ways around it to scale faster than saving up to 25% down every single time you want to buy a home, which the 25% down or 20% down is considered a conventional loan, by the way. So you can use the FHA loan. And so I'll talk about the FHA loan. I use the VA loan too for us, those of us that are entitled to that. So for the FHA loan, you got to put 3.5% down on a residential multifamily home, which again is 2 to 4 units. And so what you can do is like the house hack situation I mentioned earlier, that money that you are saving from not spending on your mortgage, you are saving up once every year, right? So you can use that money to pay your next 3.5% down payment for your next residential multifamily. So I give you an example. So if you find a duplex, right, for 150 grand, and 3.5% down is $5,250. So you factor in about $2,000 of closing costs. And so now we're at about $7,250, give or take, right? So and that's what you need in order to purchase the duplex. So now you will be living in one of the units and you'll be renting out the other. Your mortgage, let's say your mortgage is $800 and you're able to rent out the other apartment for $900. And so you save up the whole year and you have about 10 grand saved up. Now you have that money to buy a similar duplex, which will be fairly easy, whether off market or on market, through the MLS. You can use that money that you saved up for those 12 months, that 10 grand, to now probably buy a bigger or more expensive, nicer, newer duplex. And so for the FHA loan, give or take on how long you have to live in your property in order to use another one. Some places, some states are a year, some is maybe 2 years. So just look at the rules for your state on how long you're allowed to live or have to live in that spot before you can use another FHA loan. But as you can see, right, for those that only have to do it for a year, I can buy my duplex, put my money down. I save up 7 grand to buy that house. I live in one for free. I save that money that I usually would have been spending for my mortgage anyways. And then now let's say I buy a triplex. So now within a year, I have 5 units. I live in the triplex and I rent out the other 2 units. So I live in one, I'm renting out 4 others. Let's say I did that another year and then I got a fourplex. So now I'm at 9 units in 2 years. On my 3rd year, 2 years in, at 9 units. And so you can keep doing that. Now, for those of us that have families, obviously you have to kind of, it's going to be maybe a bit harder, because I understand when it comes to families, if you got a family of 5, you got to find a duplex that's got like a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. And so you'll probably have to get a home or a duplex that is more expensive than 150 grand. But for those that don't have such a big family, or you are single, this is definitely a great opportunity to scale very quickly. So for those of us that have a VA, they use the VA loan, we don't have to put anything down when it comes to the VA loan. There may be some closing costs that may come into play. Obviously, we got to pay like our the $500 earnest money to your real estate agent, or $1,000, and you got to pay for the inspection. But outside of that, there's really not that many expenses when it comes to the VA loan. And I know for us, um, only a year, so I would definitely take advantage of that. And for a lot of us, especially for the military, right? We PCS, we travel, so I would take advantage of that up to every chance that I get. Now, when last time I talked to my loan officer, he said I was allowed to have about 3 VA loans open at the same time. So if you run out of doing the VA loan, you can always refinance your first VA loan home into an investment property, so that you can get that VA loan off your back, and then now you freed up another one. So always look into that. That's consider that look into that as an exit strategy. Now, when you do refinance your property, keep in mind that when you do refinance it as a investment property, it will not be as low as it would have been when you did your initial VA loan that was considered your primary residence. Primary residences and investment properties do not get the same love when it comes to refinance or interest rates. So it's going to be a little bit higher. Obviously, if you have a great credit, it won't be too crazy, but do not expect to get, let's just say your primary loan is 2.5%. Don't expect your investment property to be the same. Maybe it'll be 3%, maybe 2.9, something of that nature. All right, so number 5 is easy tenant retention. So another awesome thing about multifamily homes is the ability to be able to retain tenants who have growing families. So for example, let's say you have a triplex, one is a studio. So you have a studio, a 2-bedroom, and you have a 3-bedroom. And your 2-bedroom right now is rented out by a family of 3, husband, wife, and they got 1 kid, and the wife is expecting. And so you know that their lease is coming to an end. Let's just say last time you came over, over for an inspection, you saw that she was, expecting, and you could just casually bring up the conversation. Hey, would y'all be interested in, going to a bigger apartment? I have such and such unit that will be available around this time frame, and it'll be at this price. What do you think? Now, obviously, what I would do is I would definitely have that in writing, send a letter as well. But you could also, just bring up that in casual conversation. So what this does is it shows that you have personal interest in them. You are taking into consideration that the fact that their family is growing, they're going to need more space, and you also retaining a happy tenant, and especially if they're paying rent on time, why not keep them? And okay, great, they paid a 2-bedroom for 700, they go in a 3-bedroom, now they're paying 1,000. So now you'd have transferred a good tenant over to a 3-bedroom. Now they're paying more rent, and now if you want to, you can make some upgrades to any to the 2-bedroom that you would like, and maybe increase that rent. So one thing also too, and I'll tie this in a little bit with number 5, is I like the easy retention part of the tenant, and how you could transfer tenants from one apartment to the other based on whatever their needs are. Because once they move out of that other one, and let's say that lease, let's say you inherited that tenant, or you've kind of kept it low for whatever reason, now you could look and see the things that you've been wanting to change that you couldn't because they were there, and you can do some upgrades, maybe repaint. Like one of my units right now is Pepto Bismol pink. When I bought the house, that was the color of the house, the inside of the unit. So at a certain point, whenever that tenant moves out, I'll be definitely repainting that apartment and increasing the rent based off of just I'm painting it white, and that changes the value because most people don't want Pepto Bismol pink. Also, can change the toilet now that the tenant is gone. So now I can make it more water efficient as well. So that lowers my utility bill. So I'm increasing my cash flow in multiple ways. This is a great opportunity. I can increase the rent because I made some upgrades. I painted, maybe I changed some tiles, and then I can also make the place more energy efficient. I can change the shower head, a low flow shower head, a low flow faucet, uh, low water needed for the toilet as well. So that's only like $100 from like Home Depot. So I'm lowering my utility bill because I pay the water bill for this place, and then I'm also increasing the rent. So that's more money in my pocket, both ways. So definitely look at those opportunities for both people to win, you and the tenant, and everybody, obviously ends up happy in that situation. Every opportunity. This is why I really like multifamily, because there's so many different ways to make your cash flow higher. And it starts with just little things per unit. And so I may start off with, in total, the triplex making $1,500 a month. But if I just make small changes to this one unit, okay, that's another 50. All right, small change to another one, okay, that's another 50. And then small change to the other one, okay, that's another 50. I just increased my income by $150 by making changes in 3 different units. And it's just still one building. And also throughout that time as well, it does increase the value of your home. The more income your property brings, the more value, or the more it's going to be worth. Obviously, the area dictates that as well. But if you're ever trying to build equity or resell your multifamily, how much the rent your rental income is, and obviously what's inside of it, is a big factor. And what I've learned as well, definitely look at ways to save and look at ways to increase. And if you could do it yourself, which if you're the one that's house hacking, why not? You're already living there. So figure out what you could do and YouTube it so you could do it yourself. So if you plan to scale your real estate portfolio strategically, then you will see that this strategy that I explained, and the tips and the benefits that I talked about, allows you to do it a bit faster than the average person saving a 25% down payment every time they want to buy a property. Now, don't get me wrong, there is a perk to putting 25% down. You have more equity in the property, or there's a wider margin between what the home is worth and the balance. So you do have more equity. So that can be a plus. When it comes to the VA loan or even the FHA loan, there is a smaller gap between what the balance on the property and the mortgage. So let's just say if there's a bad year, then you could be upside down. But like I said, you have to do your research. The numbers have to make sense. And obviously the rental income has to make sense as well for your 1% rule or your 2% rule. I like to say 1.5, because in my experience, my personal experience, and just as a disclaimer, I'm not a professional. This everything has been just from my own experience. It's been easier, and I've been able to come across 1.5% rule properties vice the 2% rule. I've come very close with one of my properties. It's like 1.85%, but on average, I've seen 1.5. 1% in my area is a little too tight. Over time, I could probably make it a good deal, but 1% rule is too tight. Definitely too tight, especially in some areas where I live, where you have the flooding insurance, which is basically another $100 on top of the insurance the homeowner's insurance, and the interest that you pay, and the regular mortgage. So it's just, I don't consider it worth it. Also, kind of another good thing about 25% down is you don't have to pay the PMI, or the insurance that they add, the mortgage company or the loan company that you went through. That's an extra insurance they add when you don't put enough skin in the game. That protects them. So I don't want people to also think that as well, like, real estate is a get rich quick scheme. What I just said, over a span of 2 years, on your third year, best case scenario, if you did, like I said, the duplex, the triplex, and then you did the quadruplex, it will put you at 9 units within your third year. Let's say you average a cash flow of $200, which, by the way, you want to average about $100 to $200 per unit. So let's just say you average $100 per unit, which would be on the lower end. Okay, now you have 9 units. It puts you at $900 a month. If you do the 200, which is what about I average about $250 per unit. So let's just say you did 200 times 9. Now you're averaging $1,800 a month in passive income. And this is, when I say $200 a month, this is like after you're paying a property manager, after you put money aside once a month for vacancy, you're putting money aside for repairs, and you're putting money aside for CapEx. CapEx is big repairs. So you got repairs, which is like, hey, the toilet broke. And you have CapEx, which is money you're putting aside for the roof or the foundation, needing to be repaired. So this is after you put all that money aside and you're paying all your utilities or any other expenses that you need to pay. You still have $200 left. So within 3 years, I'll do the math real quick. So on your third year, let's say you get to 9 units, you're making $200 per unit. 200 times 9 is $1,800 a month. 1,800 times 12 is $2,100, $21,600 in passive income. That is $21,000 that you are making that you don't have to be on site for every once in a blue moon. You decide how passive you want to be. You know, if you're that intrusive or very engaged landlord, then you could be up showing up on your properties a lot. But if you have a property manager, obviously it would behoove you to show up every once in a while to check on your properties. But you're making 21 grand a month, you're not really doing much. You still have your regular job. And everything that I told you to do was you house hacking and you using the FHA or the VA loan every year, or like I said, based on whatever state that you're in, that determines how long you need to stay in there. So maybe that might spread it out to maybe 5 years, you know, at a max 5 years in. But even still, you're making $21,000 more than what you did 5 years ago, and you're not putting in as much time as you need to. So, like I said, it's not get rich quick, but it could definitely scale up faster. And so after this, once you get to your 9 units and you have some equity in your homes, you could do a couple things. You could sell 5 of the units and plus up to that commercial multifamily real estate that I was talking about, and now get your 10 units. You trade up 5 to get maybe 8. That's more realistic. And so now you have that big unit, that big property. Or you could use the equity out of the properties that you own to now start investing in other properties, and you no longer have to house hack. Because let's be honest, maybe around this time you probably have a family, and you know your spouse ain't gonna be trying to house hack all the time. They maybe just want a single family home, got their own yard, you live on your own, and you got to worry about nothing else. So now what you do is you just use the equity in your other homes. And so if you did like what I said, where you are finding different ways to increase the value of your home when tenants leave, which what is called tenant turnover, maybe repaint, maybe add some energy efficient products in there, maybe put down some vinyl instead of the carpet, hardwood floor, whatever is worth based off the area where you're in. Please keep in mind, be a cognizant of where you're at. So if you are in a C-class neighborhood, I wouldn't advise you putting hardwood floor down. I would probably put vinyl. You know, I would probably put the sticky vinyls down. They look great and they're scratch resistant. You want to think about, you know, what's going to be durable, what's going to withstand multiple tenants and multiple years, so that you're not always going back trying to fix things. And they're easy to replace as well. You can find them in Lowe's or Home Depot. So I use them a lot, actually. I love them. So keep in mind, this is a long game. This is not a short game. But if you do it right, you can have income. I just talked to you on your third year. Possibly you could have $21,600. That varies obviously based on your situation. And then also you have now properties that you own. You have 3 properties. Like, so let's just say they all on average are 150 worth 150 grand. So 150 grand times 3, now you have $450,000 of property that you own. And you could have easily within those 3, 4, 5 years, have, 30, 40 a grand of equity in those properties. Like I said, if you do your research and you make sure that you buy properties in the right area, that you can have upscale. One of the areas, like keep in mind, right? So what I like to do is I like to see what the plan is for a city wherever I invest. So one of the cities I invest in, they are going to build a casino. So that will affect the properties that I own in that area, and for sure will raise the value of my home, and which will then raise the rent, because now that area will be, it's going to be up and coming and will provide different types of people coming into that area. I will be able to charge, instead of 900, probably 1,600 within 7 years. So something to keep in mind. One last tip as well, when it comes to, I spoke earlier about refinancing. So cool thing about refinancing, because like I said, you're going to have to take off that, for the VA loans, guys, you're going to have to take off that last VA loan to be able to free yourself up. Sometimes, like in my situation, when I did my VA loan and house hacked, it was like at 4.5% interest rate at the time. And then because of the pandemic, interest rates went really down really low. So I was able to save $100 on my mortgage when I refinanced because I took my interest rate from like 3.5 down to like 3.1. So my mortgage went down $100. So that was an extra $1,200 a month that I have now in my pocket. Not $1,200 a month, $1,200 a year I have now in my pocket a month just from refinancing. So once you kind of scale up a bit and you kind of could look and see your properties, like what needs to be refinanced because the interest rates are really low. Just from refinancing, you are also bringing more cash flow because your rents didn't change. If anything, every year your rent should be going up a little bit. And you just lowered your interest rates, which then lowered your mortgage on a fixed rate. So you're paying less mortgage, you're keeping more money in your pocket, and then the rents are going up. Be cautious and considerate when it comes to rent increase. I like to do 1.5% a year. I know inflation is 4% every year, but I don't think some people can keep up with that. Go based off your market. If your market demands that, cool. I think the average rental income, the average rent increase from my area was like 3%. So if I have a great tenant, I give them a 60-day notice. Hey, rent's gonna go up 1.5% due to repairs and other expenses going up because things do go up every year. And as a landlord, you have to make sure that stuff is getting covered. And just have a good balance between business and being humane. And I think as long as you have that balance, you can't go wrong.